ठीक है, disconnecting you. Okay. Thank you very much, Team Percy, and welcome on board, friends. The thing that we are going to talk today is important. As a researcher, importantly, when you are a student researcher, and also if you are somebody who is willing to be a writer. And it is why so? Because in the world we are living in, I have particularly observed that the quality of language has gone down, right? So, and that has become a problem to many of us. Why it has happened that quality of language is reducing? Number one, that we have got a lot of methods to express. Nowadays, we can simply go with a lot of emojis and slang languages and all these things. And that's why the tendency of us to write and to express by writing has been reduced. I mean, those were the era when people used to write letters, really long letters to relatives and friends and colleagues, and that was the time when you used to wait for those letters for months and sometimes even for weeks. At that time, you had no option but to impress the other side of the person, the audience, just by the good words, vocabulary, and language. So people used to write a lot. That was the time. If you will study about the history of independence of India, then you will see that leaders who were involved in the independence of India, they used to exchange letters. And when they used to exchange letters, even if they are personally very good friend and they're very connected, they're very cordial into their relationship, at times when they used to write letters to each other, the language, the eloquence of the vocabulary, and the construct of the sentence used to be very rich and very impressive. Nowadays, we don't do that. Nowadays, we can simply have a video chat with somebody and can continue to communicate in the style and the fashion and the slang that we use in our home. And that is one important reason that the quality of language has been reduced. And I'm not only particularly saying about the English language because it's largest spoken language in the world. In fact, most of the literature in the world are available in English language. That's why we all think that we have to be good in English language, and it has become a sort of prestige, uh, or some sort of dominance, expression of dominance, if you are good at an English language. But in reality, what I have observed that people who are not good in their native language are the ones who are particularly not good in English language or any academic language or any literary language or any language which is the substance of exchange between one person to person of another culture or region or religion or geographic dominance. And this is why we thought, as a Percent research, that rather than talking about data and statistics and methodology, it is vital for us to talk about the language we use in research or in academia. Academic language is not different than any of the formal language. Slightly different, but the idea is the importance of academic language is not particularly to be different from any other formal language, but to be different in terms of uh, it has to be extremely different because the expression of thoughts, expression of idea becomes supreme in academic language, and the subject who is expressing it, or the subject who has written it, propounded the theory, or the researcher, or the candidate, the person becomes of secondary importance. So, and that is where you see a very contrast between the language we use in newspapers, the language we use in our other creative writings, and the language we use in academic writings. Academic writings gives importance to the expression of ideas. In newspaper writing, it is more about the sensation of of the event that had happened, the action that has happened. And that is why most of the newspapers are written into passive voice. And when you write something in formal, and if you're using a lot of passive voice, then one can easily understand that either you're influenced by the language of the newspapers or the media, or simply you are so much convinced that the language of sensation is the original language of expression. And that is why you see a lot of rejections and lot of failures in your academic publications. So, you need to be really very good in ideas, or the thoughts of the schools, or the subject matter that you're studying as a scholar. You have to be uniquely good. You should be able to find out what is the new I can contribute in the knowledge repository of that particular subject or domain. That is, anyways, important. You cannot subside that. But you cannot do that until unless you're not able to express what you have done in terms of ideas with the subject. And if you're not able to express it with the people who are going to read your uh, papers, then also the chances are very less that you will get any authentic publishers to publish your ideas. And what will happen if you're not getting authentic publications about your works, then the last thing that will happen, that your idea will die unknown or in solace, without getting any credible uh, journey and credible adoption into the society for which we are creating that knowledge. So who is the researcher basically? A researcher is a manufacturer of knowledge, right? Academicians are the distributor of knowledge, right? So the whole ecosystem of education, you can say, is the business of knowledge in a generic context, in the context we are living in. So in this business of knowledge, if you are the miners, you as a researcher are the miners or the manufacturer of the knowledge, and if that knowledge is not reaching out to the ultimate society for which we are actually mining the knowledge, then it will, the whole purpose of you being a researcher defeats. And that's why I'm particularly interested into talking about, which almost I can see is the weakness of 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 most of the researchers I come across. And I will not say that the people who are struggling researchers are particularly weak into academic writings, or somebody like that. Even if some of the most established researchers need to outsource the editing and rewriting and comprehensive writing about the subject they are doing. Why it happens, and why, even if you are good at spoken language, maybe English or maybe whatever other language you use, even if you're good into these languages, then also it becomes challenging for you to write it effectively. And that's why Persic research is interested in talking something which called nuances and the best practices of academic writing. Right. So talking more about my organization is Persic Research. We say that we nudge researchers for better, because as a community we all understand, as a researchers community we all understand that we all go through the phases of doing a lot of research and then leave the research at all, go back to the society, start living kind of personal and civilian lives, and one day we again go back to our research world and start performing better. And this kind of slight cyclic order of your engagement with the research world keeps on happening. And that's why we need a community which can keep our motivation consistent, keep our hopes alive, and ensure that we are invested to our maximum capacity in the kind of researches we are doing. Persic research want all of us to remain invested maximum into the field of research, because as a data miners, we are alone inside the mines, we are alone in the site of the production of the knowledge. And when you're alone, you always are into self doubts, and those self doubts alienates you for sometimes from the research. But if we will keep hand holding, we will see for each other, look for each other, then possibility is very high that some of us who are doing exceptionally good researches will get the light of the day, will get revelations of the publications of their ideas into the larger context, and maybe those ideas will really be able to change the world we are living in. And that's why we as a community want to work it. How are we working? What are we doing exactly? How are we helping, and what things are we doing as a Persec research? You can very much visit www.persec.in, PERC. So it is per second, right? So persec.in, and you can book an appointment with us and we can talk more about it. Yes. So the line that I want to tell all of you, importantly, is that writing is a type of performance, and your audience must engage with it. So this is the message you should take home from this lecture today. Like dancing, like singing, like playing cricket, like playing football, billiards, snooker, chess, or anything. Writing is also a performance. But all in in sports or in cultural festivals, you have a stage, and the performance is being watched live. But in writing, you perform first, and it gets read later, people react to it later, people engage with it later. So it doesn't happen in the same time zone, right? You're dancing, people are watching, and people will enjoy your dance. They will immediately give you a feedback that you danced well, or you have danced excellently, or something not so better. And if you're singing, almost alike will get the feedback how good, bad, or ugly you are singing. Same goes with cricket or football or something like that. But in our context, as a researcher or as a writer, we write it today, we publish it tomorrow, and people read it day after tomorrow. So by the time our content, our creativity, our performance reaches to our audience, there is a big time lag. That is the only difference. Other than that, we are exactly are the performers, and performers will be judged, will be criticized, will be rectified, will get feedbacks, and and all this will happen if we are able to engage our audiences. Writing, because it gets published. So the good thing about you as a writer performer, right, writing performance, is that once you performed, it can be evaluated in any point of time in the future. You can still find the doctrines and the testaments written by uh, Karl Marx or Einstein's, or, or anybody in the or Newton, or in fact Plato, Socrates, and Aristotle, and who. That's a beauty, right? So which is not possible in sports, like which is not possible in dancing or singing or music. So that's a good thing. Your original writing can actually go far into the time. So this is very good thing about our kind of performance. So which means, like, if your writing can actually live longer than your own life, or in fact the life of the generations and the civilizations, then you as a writer has to be more responsible into the kind of things that you're writing. And if you are a researcher wherein the scope of you creating any fiction or half truth or made truth is very less, then this substance of responsibility increases even more, even larger. And this is why we have a kind of funnel between you as a researchers and your readers, which is called journals and publishers and publications. The job of these journals, publishers, and publications is to ensure that whatever you are writing has sufficient substance of responsibility, authenticity, and realism and practiced truth about it. You're just not publishing because it has come to your mind and you just want to broadcast it. That's why here the concept of academic writing becomes of ultimate relevance to all of us. Right, friends. So moving ahead, there are many types of writings. And all these types of writings are important for any researchers. You cannot just say that, okay, narrative is not the type of writing which researchers will be using, or descriptive or persuasive or expository or creative writings. We may think that creative writing is not something we as a researchers need to do. It is okay if it is done. No, we need the mixture of all these types of writings in our scripts, our chapters, our thesis, and in our dissertations. So, what will be the ratio of mixing what in it depends upon who is your audience and what you want to achieve out of writing that dissertation or thesis or paper or chapter or whatever the document that you're preparing. You got my point? So, what is narrative writing? It is the narration of the time which is being spent in the story or in the idea you're trying to explain. So, for example, if you are doing research about the atomic structure, atomic configuration, or maybe if you're talking about some chemical chain reaction or chemical reaction processes, then probably you have to narrate the entire process of how you are doing it. How are you mixing two chemicals? How are you heating or cooling them? How are you freezing it, and what time it is taking, and what is happening in between that time of the processes. So narration is about the time which is running in concurrence with what you are explaining, right? So that's called narrative style of writing. A type of writing is called narrative type of writings. Imagine, so most of the novels, most of the fictions and stories and essays are written in a way which is called narrative. So why we use narrative techniques? In narration techniques, we want to ensure that our audience knows everything used up and everything they should know in that particular process. For example, if you are trying to define this particular scene where I'm standing, so you want to make sure that you are explaining about the paintings, about the books, about the things that is kept here, about the dress that I'm wearing, about my face expressions, about the person and the age who is speaking. You want to try and explain everything so that you can actually help your audience know that the person who was speaking about academic writing is relatively authentic, is credible, can he has a right to talk about these things, he should talk about these things, and etc. Right? So it was not a background of a discotheque. It was not a background of a wedding wherein the person was standing and he was casually talking about these things. So everything in the narration will make sense to your audience if you're trying to narrate what happened at any point of time, about the time in which you're explaining. Describing is about when when you want to let your audience know the things which are not directly visible, but it has to be revealed upon your audiences. And so, for example, when you're writing a suspense story, when you are trying your audiences to guess who is the killer and who is the murderer or something like that, then perhaps you are again talking about something which is not happening in parallelly in the time, but it is somewhere hidden or somewhere dated from the time, either in the past or in the future, or somewhere in the parallel world, but it is not directly visible, and you have to describe it so that your audience can effectively know, confidently know that what is happening uh, there, right? So that is called descriptor, and that's why and right, so it is used into the fiction or into poems or into songs, and you will see that in songs and poems you will realize that most of the people who in the audience, when some poet recites the poetry, sometimes it happens that audience laughs 2 3 seconds later because they're not able to guess immediately what poet was trying to say, because that's a description, that's a wide canvas behind the words and sentences being spoken or written by the poet or the researchers or the academicians or the writers in. Persuasive writing is something when you are actually pushing forward your agenda, your purpose, you're actually advocating your agendas and ideas to your audience so that your audience can take appropriate action immediately after reading what you have written. That is called persuasive writing. In persuasive writing, your target audience must take certain action after reading your message or whatever things you have written. And the words that you're choosing, the narratives, the methods that you're using in that writing must ensure that the desired action happens. That's why it is called persuasive writing. So all the letter of recommendations, all the statement of purposes for the seeking admissions into some better universities, or some sales page, or some promotion lines, advertisement scripts, all these things are written in the persuasive ways. That's why it is called persuasive writing. Now, expository writing is like it is talking about the exposure. So if you read it, you will be something new will be revealed to you. Something new will be discovered by you. You will be exposed to some sort of new things, or something which was so far not known to you, was not important, uh, um, was not into the domain, in your domain, in your knowledge domain. And that's why this style of writing is called expository writing. So all those textbooks, like if you'll watch Discovery Channel, if you'll watch Net Geographics, or if you read Wikipedia or Britannica or encyclopedia, or any textbooks of NCRT, or any textbook for that matter, you will see that the narration of these books are expository. And most of your research papers, most of your thesis and dissertations should be written in expository writing more, right? So I'm not saying that exclusively written into the expository writing types only, but the highest configuration of all the forms of writing types, in which the configuration of expository writing should be highest, and it is relatively different than writing all other forms. What is used mostly in terms of writing is creative writing, and what is assumed uh, amicably, or just like that, is called creative writing. People tend to simply achieve assume it that whatever has to be written has to be creative, and that is where most of the researchers also face challenge. most of the researchers think most of the researchers think that um, yeah so oh yes. So most of the researchers think that they have to write creatively. So creative writing, oh, yeah, it's good that we all have to have a creative writing, but and there has to be a tint of creative writing into the research papers that you're writing, or the thesis or dissertation that you're writing. But that's your ultimate idea is not to impress your panel of academicians or researchers or senior researchers, publishers, and all these bodies, because they're already impressed by the subject you have taken up, and they're already sold to the topic you are studying. So you don't have to make extra effort to do that, because when you're doing a thesis and dissertation, the audience of your thesis and dissertations are not the people who are um, who are who are generically randomly picking up any material to read, right? Those who are reading novels, those who are reading comic books, or reading small stories, are not the readers of your texts. And that's why you don't have to be impress your audience in terms when you're writing a thesis or dissertation by the wordings, or by the narratives, or by the styles of writing, but by the subject and depth of the subject that you have studied. So all of these types of writings are important, but which one is more important is, and how much should be the mixture of these in your academic text, depends upon who is your audience, right? So if you're writing a thesis, then perhaps your expository writing should be more, something around 60 to 70%. But still, I'm saying that narration is going to be important, because there are going to be something about the variables that you're using, about the context that you're using, about the applicability of the subject that you're taking, wherein it is important for you to write something in narration about the time, about the situation when your subject will be dealt by the common people and common classes. Same goes with descriptive and persuasive writing methodology. Right. So perhaps when you're uploading your research papers to the journals for requesting them to publish, the the letter that you're going to write them, the covering letter that you're doing, maybe that covering letter should have persuasive writing skills more, but not into the exact document that you produced for the publication. Right. So, but before writing, you have to have certain things in mind, which is called pre-writing. What pre-writing means? So, like pre-writing is a phenomena when you are about to finalize the subject and what aspect of that subject you're going to talk, you're going to study, and out of all the studies, what part of that subject, that knowledge you're going to document in this particular documentations, which you're intended to either publish or intended to do further studies, or maybe asking for more people to collaborate into that study. So pre-writing is the process of you. So for example, if you're a drama artist, you are arranging all the props you want to use. You're actually trying to gauge which part of the stage you will be standing, what should be the lighting arrangements of the stage positions you are into, what will be the background score, background music, and at what will be my cue to start my actions, and where will I end, what will be my cue to stop my action. All these things that you are doing on a day before or maybe an hour before when your show begins is called you preparing for your play or the drama. Similarly, now because writing is also performance, in the process of you performing as a writer, what are the things that you're going to use, where are you going to take your audience or your readers, where you will start catching your audience and readers, in what state of minds your readers will be at the time they pick up your document, and what will be the stage of mind when they will finish or complete your document, and what will happen if they leave it in middle of, or what if they're not reading the full text but text into the pages and uh, a summary or something like that. So you have to make all those assumptions and all those arrangements well in advance before actually beginning to write. And friends, if you have any question for so far, you can always write into the comment box. And if there is no comment box, if you're not able to write in the comment box, then probably you have to subscribe the channel. Once you'll subscribe it, probably you'll be able to start writing your questions. For us, for any researcher for that matter, for all of us, what makes us motivated about talking about any subject is when we start getting questions from the audience. For that, I'm saying that if you're asking questions, it will help us take the subject into something which can be more relevant to you, more useful to you, and can serve even greater purpose. So if you have a question, you can ask. Otherwise, I have my own assumed situations wherein you as a writer face, and we'll be talking about that. So pre-writing is the process. It's a four-stage process. You have to scrutinize your idea. Scrutiny of your idea is important because even if you'll not do scrutiny, then publishers and the panelists or the peer group will scrutinize your idea. So rather than going that far and coming back to zero, it is good that you scrutinize your idea here and think about what you will not use in your document about the entire idea. So any idea will have lot of spokes and hubs and further directions to take it from that idea. Will you take direction A, will you take direction B, or will you just remain to that idea? How are you going to do justice with that idea? How are you going to ensure that you have not actually moved out from the idea, or discuss less about things that you're claiming and discuss more about things that you have not claimed into it? So these are the things that you have to scrutinize. Then organize it. So once you have scrutinized, you okay, these are the things I'm going to talk, these are things I'm going to leave. Maybe I'll be picking those things later into some other part of documentations. But in today's documentation, this piece of documentation about such a big idea, I'm just talking about this chunk of the whole idea and will be documenting it, and I'll be leaving the rest of it. So that's something comes after the scrutiny. Next is when you organize it. Okay, now if this is the part, then I'll be talking this part first, that part later, this part in middle, or maybe I will start creating curiosity first and then solving those curiosity, or maybe I'll just keep on revealing the ideas and information as it comes into the sequence of me revealing those ideas. So that's called the organization of the thoughts that you will be doing. Then you have to do iteration and filtration. So once you arrange your ideas into thought line, into timeline, you still have a lot of scope to go to a smaller amount of people, ask from them that whatever you have written making sense or not. These people will be having, certainly will be having some positive feedback, some negative feedback, some constructive suggestions, and something like that. Based on those suggestions and feedbacks, you will come back and you'll see that okay, I need to readjust and resettle and rearrange the flow of thoughts and method flow. So this is called iteration and filtration. So, and these things happen just before you start writing, right? So and the ultimate important thing is about pre-writing is that you perimeter your purpose, because whenever you start thinking about an idea, it have lot many ways to move from it and keep on talking and discussing about even further, and you will start talking about the quality of soil on the land, and you will end up talking about the quality of soil in the land of the moon, right, in the surface of the moon or in the surface of the Mars, or maybe the quality of soil you will get into some newfound land in some other solar system or some other planetary system. So these things can go anywhere. You pick up any topic and that topic can go anywhere. But why you are documenting this particular topic, if you'll perimeter your purpose and your thought, then the chances of you getting away from what you're claiming in your document will be reduced. So these are the 4 steps you use before you even begin to writing, right? So I hope this makes sense to you, and this is essential, right? So to do these 4 types of things, you can use 3 methods of pre-writing. One is called cubing. So how do you do cubing? Is like, for example, you you just make a draft, something like that, and you cube it like, okay, this side of the idea talks this, and that side of idea talks this. This is another idea. This is another idea, like that. So you can have all, what, cubes and methods and patterns. So this is the introduction. I'll be doing that. Here I'm going to talk about the history of the research or the subject. Here I'm going to talk about the variables, methods, and constructs. So you can cube it. Another way is making the mind maps. Okay, this after this and that after that, the branches and stems of and the roots of all the ideas you can discuss. That is called mapping. Another method is you are simply putting into a row and columns and putting your idea and fitting into some sequences. So these are some of the methods which will help you arrange your thoughts and ideas, and ensure that you as a researcher are into right direction of making that document. Once you start documenting it, you have to understand that your write-ups will have 3 essential things which will define the quality of what you're writing: your vocabulary, your tone of the narration, the flow of the context, the text that you're writing, and the diction that you have used in your writing. And and these are the things, these 3 things, it will never come into the first draft ever, right? Until unless you're not a very established and pro writer, and people admire your writing skills, and you yourself love your writing skills. Until unless you're not somebody who is a routine performer in terms of writing, these 3 things will not come, first draft. Even if the people who are very admired writers, very very famous writers, also agrees with the fact that you do not get vocabulary, tone, and diction of your narrations right all the time. We'll talk about these things in subsequent slides. So how you can have the right thing is like you have to be specific about the subject. Whenever you're creating an academic document, academic content, You have to be very specific to the subject, because all subjects, all topics, all ideas have immense possibilities of leaking away, breaking away, cutting away from one idea to another in whatever speed and velocity or acceleration possible. But you shouldn't be you shouldn't be um, doing that. You have to be specific. So for example, you have given a title to your document. If your text is not doing justice to that title, you're not specific into what you're saying and what you're talking. Second thing is, you have to be precise. Don't use lot of words, and do not do repeat your ideas and thoughts. Do not establish and reestablish it. Do not just go into the kind of self doubts that, okay, maybe this paragraph did not explain it well, I will add another paragraph to explain it, or I will add another example or another things and something more into it. No, you you as a researcher, you should know that your audience knows something about the subject you are studying, credibly, at least knows about the thing that you're doing. So you don't have to impress them by more examples, more set of rules, more set of explanations, prepositions, and adjectives and vocabulary, rich vocabularies. No, you have to be having specific vocabulary, a specific tone, specific diction, and specific examples. You don't have to use a lot of words to do that. Use lesser amount of words. And again, do not leave things half away. Do not assume that your audience will know the rest of it, because even if your audience will able to know what the rest of it, you shouldn't leave that scope of assumptions and scope of guessworks and doubts into the document that you're preparing. So make sure that whatever you're talking is extremely complete. Right. So what happens when you are trying to write something extremely complete, precise, and specific? The problem that you face is called wordiness. Any writer or any researcher, any academicians, you take their first draft, and you will see that that first draft has a lot of words. In fact, if you go to some software tools like grammarly.com or something like that, all the yellow lines, your yellow underlined sentences, if you go to the detail that what problem is there in that line, two things will come more. Either they are written in a passive voice, or they are written with lot of words. Lot of words may help you fill pages, but will not let a lot of readers get engaged with the things that you are talking. And that's why wordiness is a bad idea if you're writing. So do not have lot of words in it, right? You have to be very precise and very complete. So why it happens, why wordiness happens? Because we as a researcher, we think that our sound, our tone of the text should be very formal. Yes, of course it has to be formal, but in order to be formal, like it's okay to say that, dear audience, dear researchers, dear crew members, dear colleagues, but that's okay. I mean, when you are in stage, when you have all the dignitaries there on the stage in the panel you're talking, or maybe dignitaries sitting in the front row of your audience, then maybe it is very important that you go very formal and address each one of them and use all the accolades and all the titles and prefixes and everything in that. But when you're writing your text, the ultimate leader, the ultimate context is the content of those documents and nothing else. So in writing your document, you should not think that you're performing on stage as a lecturer or a speaker or a orator. So there you don't have to be extremely very formal about things. All you can do is that, okay, some words of formalities, and you can head on start talking about the subject matters, because everybody who's reading your document, they have the same problem, that they have a lot of things to do in less amount of time. So they just want to quickly understand what you are talking, rather than going into the formalities of you introducing and all that, right? So that's when you are trying to be very formal, your text becomes very wording, full of words, unnecessary words that can be removed. Second reason why we are having a lot of wordiness is because we have lack of vocabulary. And when I say lack of vocabulary, I want to remind you that it is not the English language. If, for example, you're born in a, your mother language is different, your first language is different, and your academic writing is English. A lot of people think that just because I'm English is my second language, I do not know the good words, appropriate words, vocabulary to express what I want to say. No, that's the wrong way. It is because you struggle for good words in your own first language equally as much as you struggle for good words into your second language or the formal language or the official language. So why it is happening? One, I said that we have stopped writing. Number one, number two, we have stopped uh, conversing formally enough. Like all the places, our workplaces are full of slangs, our personal life are full of slang, and we kind of have got text and chats applications in our mobile, like which just you're always in the quest of expressing something in less amount of time and in just some sort of slang, and that is why we have started forgetting vocabulary. A story about vocabulary is very simple. Like if I will come to your home and if I will ask that, boss, what is the time, you will immediately look to a wall and give me the time. And if so happened that in the last festive seasons you have accidentally changed the location of your wall clock from wall A to wall B, and if I'll come and ask time from you, you will still look at the wall A, and then you realize that okay, clock is in wall B, and then you look at wall B, and then you will give me the time. But all this will happen in say 10 seconds.
For that, you'll have to turn off aeroplane mode.
Right. So you will be you'll be able to do this in absolutely few seconds only. But if I'll come to your home and ask for hammer or maybe a saw or something like that, then you will take at least 10 to 20 seconds to recall exactly where that hammer or plier or some sort of instrument is placed. Right? Maybe it is somewhere in, in the down cupboard or something like that, and you will take time to take it out. But one thing you know that it is there, the hammer, the saw that I'm asking as a neighbor, you have it, but you will still take at least a minute or two to figure out where it is. So what is the difference between I'm asking time when I come your home and I'm asking for hammer when I'm coming your home? In both the situations, you know that there is a hammer, you know there is a wall clock. But because wall clock you use at least 10 times or 20 times a day, mostly subconsciously, so you exactly know where that wall clock is. But with hammer you use just once in a month or somewhere in a week time, or maybe sometimes not even for years. And that's why you exactly know because you have purchased it, but you don't know where it is located, where you can find it. That is what is the vocabulary. So vocabulary has something called active vocabulary and passive vocabulary. So when I say something to you in English language, you're able to understand it because you know those words. Like the hammer, you know that it exists in your home. It is there, some lying there, somewhere in the home. But when you're asked to come on stage or write, you are not able to figure out those words because the words are into your passive repository, not into your active repository. So how you can have your words, collection of words from passive repository to active repository is by reading a lot, writing a lot, and most importantly, speaking a lot about the subject that you're talking. So if you're thinking that you'll keep on writing things and you'll not discuss, talk, and speak about it, then perhaps you're not doing enough justice with the subject matter you're trying to express. And third is that we always use some sort of modifiers, some sort of connected words, some sort of unnecessary words, which in order to make our sentence very bulky and heavy and beautiful, that these things are not required in academic writings. And then too many prepositions we use just to make it more beautiful and just to kind of impress the person we are talking. And then fifth, very important, that the subject matter we're talking, we are very possessive about it. That becomes one reason that. So to remove wordiness, you have to understand the rule. The thumb rule is that you have to express, not impress your audience, right? You're not doing a film acting thing. You're not something of that sort. So you don't have to impress your audience. You have to express what is inside you. And in the process of expressing, you don't have to have any eloquence and right making beautiful words. You just can be into the subjects you're using. So a good academic writing should be more about the structure of paragraph, right? So and the paragraph structure should be in active voice. The punctuation should be absolutely right. Sentences should be small and not like too many conjunctions and too many connections of intermixing of sentences. Sentences has to be small as much as it can, so that people can remember your variable, remember your thought, remember your ideas, and not that they just forget in the quest of completing that sentence, right? So all the choppiness should be removed, all the repetitions should be removed. You have to have a really good vocabulary to express exactly what you want to say, and your tone has to be very formal in your narratives. You need to practice all of it. So here is a deal for you. The deal is that you write a piece of article. You go to my website persec.in, book an appointment, attach those documents that write up with us. And in our appointment, we will talk exactly what went wrong and what can be improved further in the things that you're writing. And at the time of booking of um, appointment, you can use um, uh, a passcode, right? You can use a passcode called Persec Test, PERSEC TEST, Persec Test, and use it. This is called coupons. If you use this coupon, you will get more than 90% discount into the camp. So my intention is not to earn from you. Just want to show you exactly what goes wrong when you do write academic content and where it is missing. Right. So please do that if you want to do that. At the last, I want to talk about the grammar that we use. A good grammar is not about good writing, but it is about. But if it is not good, it distracts. So, what happens? Like you don't have to be excellent in grammars and making grammatical mistake is crime. No, it's not that. But yeah, if there are grammatical mistakes, the engagement will be reduced. People will not take your content seriously. People will not um, take you as a serious a researcher or thinker, and that's why there shouldn't be grammatical mistakes. But when I say that, but I think 5 to 6%, even 10% of grammatical mistakes are okay as long as the idea that you're talking is submines everything else, right? So my idea is that if there are grammatical mistakes, people will less likely to engage with the subject that you're writing, and that's why there shouldn't be any grammatical mistakes. But it's okay. I mean, you shouldn't be worried about or feared about grammatical mistakes. Another thing is like a good write up is not about what is written, but it is about what is rewritten. So any good write ups, any good speech, any good document you pick up, any good novel you pick up, anything which is famous and written, you pick up and you'll realize that these are things which have been written and rewritten up 10 times. They've been iterated, modified, re-verified, reduced, enhanced, right? The timing of the tempo, the dictations, the diction, the tone, the verbatim, it comes after and after and after when you rewrite it and re-edit it and read it. So it is the editing of the content that you have written is makes the real magic rather than writing it for the first time. And what happens with the researchers is that by the time we end up writing, we are already so much late that we are always in the rush of submitting the document, and that's where it becomes very um, mm, sad for the researchers when they get rejected from the desk or rejected from the panel just because the language is not good. So, right, friends. So, I will repeat again. I said that if you want us to see your write ups and if you want inputs from us, that what are things missing in your writing, then probably you can go to our website, www perc.in, and if you'll go there, you will. In fact, I'll just show you this, right? So it will be very easy. Yeah. So if you'll go there, you can book an appointment with our experts, and these experts will tell you about the mistakes that you're making, or maybe how can make it more beautiful. If document is already beautiful, how we can make it more beautiful and more publishing worthy. So that may be really be ultimate justice of what we are trying to do. And then the most important thing is, friends, that if you're booking that appointment, you can use the code PERSEC test, PERSEC test. So I think you will get things almost for free. So that's the cash line. So if there are no questions in the chat box, because I'm still not able to see any questions in the chat box, so I'll assume that there are no questions there. Hi, Uncle. So, oh, Uncle has sent some message long time ago. Okay, so thank you very much. Thank you.